We are only a month into this second Trump administration, but it's really starting to look like the cracks are showing all across the country. We are seeing Republican Congress members being badgered at their town halls, even in deep red districts. Donald Trump's polling is falling off of a cliff right now, not only just for him, but for the actions his administration are taking as well. And now we even have Trump voters coming out and admitting to the world that they regret voting for this buffoon. And as tempting as it might be to point and laugh and say, ha ha, I told you so, we should definitely be open to taking these people into a coalition that can fight back against this Trump administration. Because I don't know about you guys, but I want to win elections. And if we shut all of these people out, that is going to be much, much harder to do. So if these people are willing to admit that they made a mistake, if they are willing to fight back against this authoritarian takeover, then we should definitely have the conversation about accepting these folks back in to a large tent coalition. So let's go ahead and take a look at this first guy. He's an IRS agent who comes out and just admits that he thought things were going to be different under this Trump administration. And if you do appreciate the work I do, please do remember to subscribe.
I thought that he was... I did support him. I was a Trump supporter. You know, when he talks about government waste and all that, yes, I'm behind it. I believe there is a lot of stuff in the government that needs fixing. And that's part of the reason why I actually wanted to work for the government, actually, to help change the things that are wrong in the world, you know? And I thought that someone with like his business acumen would have come in with a fine-tooth comb and actually found it, instead of coming in with a wrecking ball and destroying people's lives for no reason.
Now, this guy was obviously hoodwinked by Donald Trump into believing that he had some godlike business acumen and that he was going to come in and he was going to do great things for this country and it was going to benefit a whole bunch of Americans. Obviously, this guy was played. And we can all agree that we do not want waste, fraud, and abuse in the system. And we can put in programs, we can put in mechanisms that can fight back against that stuff. That is all fine. But what Donald Trump is doing is not that. They are taking a machete to our federal government. They are trying to destroy it from the inside out. They are shutting down agencies that have been congressionally approved. They are shutting down funding that was approved by Congress. And now they're just laying off or firing tens of thousands of employees, all in the name of this ideological commitment to smaller government. It is just reckless, and like he said, he's just destroying people's lives for no good reason. Donald Trump and the MAGA movement have created this supervillain out of federal workers, but what people don't realize is federal workers work all around the country. In every single state, there are federal workers. They're not all just Washington, D.C. bureaucrats that are trying to pull one over on the American people like Trump and his minions would have you believe. Federal workers are your neighbors. Federal workers work in the institutes of health, researching breakthroughs in science and cancer. This boogeyman that has been created by the MAGA movement serves nobody except Donald Trump and his billionaire buddies, because they can point over there and say, ha ha, it's their fault. This is why we're doing what we're doing. And it is hurting Americans. This voter is very regretful now that Donald Trump is actually trying to follow through with his mass deportations.
I spoke with Trump voters who just 1 month in say they are now horrified by what they helped cause when they voted for Trump. Quote, Stacey White says she voted for President Trump because she wanted lower prices and to stop fentanyl from coming into the U.S. Now, with widespread federal layoffs and expected cuts, she worries her family will lose their house if her partner is laid off from his government-adjacent job. At the dialysis unit where she works, staff has started doing drills for what to do if Immigration and Customs Enforcement comes to deport their patients. Stacey said, quote, when we said safer borders, I thought he was thinking, let's stop the drugs from coming into the country. I didn't know he was going to start raiding places. She said she didn't believe he would actually follow through on some of the more hardline policies he touted during the campaign.
Now, do I wish people like this would have saw the light before the 2024 election? Of course. Did we try to warn people that mass deportations were on the table and that even American citizens were going to get wrapped up into a system like that? Yeah, we said that too. But now that Donald Trump is actually in office, he is following through on some of the more heinous promises that he made. The American people are being impacted. Good, solid people are being impacted. They said they built a boogeyman out of the quote-unquote illegal immigrant. They said that all of them were criminals or that they were just going to be rounding up the criminals. But we just know that that is not the case. At least half of the people that Tom Homan and his goons are arresting have no criminal record. We know that veterans have been wrapped up in these sweeps and being forced to prove that they were an American citizen and that they served in our military. There is damage being done all over the country. And I wish that these folks would have realized this was what was going to be served to the American people, but that is just not the cards we are dealt. Here's other voters who are regretful and embarrassed that they voted for Donald Trump.
49-year-old Omaha, Nebraska resident said, quote, now I'm like, dang, why didn't I just pick Kamala? Emily Anderson from Duluth, Minnesota, categorizes her vote for Trump this year as the, quote, biggest mistake of my life. She is horrified by Trump's focus on deportations and use of Guantanamo Bay to hold migrants. She says that Trump has been too focused on, quote, ridiculous, flashy moves such as banning paper straws and renaming the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. Anderson's daughter's occupational therapist has stopped taking new patients over fears that the practice will have its federal funding dry up. Anderson said, quote, I feel so stupid, guilty, regretful. Embarrassed is a huge one. I am absolutely embarrassed that I voted for Trump.
Now, unfortunately, Donald Trump is the president. He was voted in. He did win the election. More people voted against him than they did for him, but he legitimately won this election. And we are going to have to deal with those consequences for the next 4 years. And I think it would behoove us to take these people who are regretful of their vote, who are willing to work with us to push back against this administration. We should take them under our umbrella, and we should work with them to defeat this MAGA movement. Or else this pain and suffering that is being inflicted on people by the Trump administration is going to continue. Even if Trump is dead and gone, this MAGA movement is toxic, and it is antithetical to our values as Americans. And it's not only individual voters that are coming out and expressing some regret or some remorse or maybe realizing that they didn't make a great decision. We even have governors across the country coming out, and even though they say they support Trump, they are having to do things that are countering his reckless actions.
Dateline Richmond. Governor Glenn Youngkin said today that the state is preparing an aid package for Virginians losing their jobs in the Trump administration's gutting of the federal workforce. But he said the cuts are necessary. In his first extended public remarks on the cuts, Youngkin told reporters that he feels deep concern for those who are anxious about their employment future as the White House purges people at almost every agency. Hundreds of workers at the FAA lost their jobs over the weekend, for example, and a sweeping elimination of workers ahead of a Tuesday deadline affected map makers and cancer researchers and FEMA staffers, among thousands more cut over the past few weeks. But Youngkin defended the Trump administration's actions, which disproportionately affect Virginia as one of the top states in the country for federal employment and spending, with more than 140,000 federal workers. Even one of Youngkin's signature achievements, a computer science laboratory high school in Richmond, has been touched by the cuts with cancellation of a federal grant for a teacher residency program. The governor said he wanted it known that, quote, "We understand and we're here to help." He said the state, quote, "will have the ability to support federal workers through any job dislocation." But the governor declined to provide details about what kind of help the state is prepared to offer. He said that when the plan is ready, quote, "I want to communicate it in a package. We'll have a good one for you."
So let me get this straight. You have Glenn Youngkin up in Virginia saying, "Oh yeah, I'm a MAGA diehard. I support Trump." Yet, what the Trump administration is doing is tearing your state apart, inflicting pain on your residents there. I mean, in what world is it okay for a governor to rally behind the president that is causing all of this pain while his constituents get hurt? While he's not coming out and pushing back against all this pain and suffering that he is causing? These people are pathetic. They are weak. Why not come out and say, "Yo, dude, Trump, you're hurting my people here"? Why are these people just falling in line? Why are these people just supporting Trump, even though he is causing so much harm? And Glenn Youngkin is not the only one.
Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska asking for exemptions to Trump's cuts and actions, specifically for Indian tribes in Alaska. Republican Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa asking for an exemption for Iowa farmers to the tariffs on Canada. Republican Florida Congresswoman Maria Elvira Salazar asking for an exemption to the indiscriminate deportation policies. Republican Senator Katie Britt asking for an exemption on the massive cuts to scientific and medical research, saying, you couldn't possibly mean Alabama for those cuts, could you? Not Alabama. You want these cuts elsewhere, right? Republican Senator Susan Collins of Maine saying the same thing, saying surely those cuts don't apply to the universities and labs in Maine. She said if it applies to the ones in Maine, that would be, quote, devastating.
Each and every Republican who is lining up behind Donald Trump and supporting his bizarre administration should be absolutely ashamed of themselves, and each and every one of them should be voted out of office. Because what are they telling you here? We understand that Trump is inflicting pain on my constituents. We understand that he is doing a whole bunch of reckless things that is hurting people. And maybe I'll write him a letter to ask for exemptions, but in public, in all of your votes, you are just toting the party line. These people are pathetic, and that is why it is so important that you vote for Democrats up and down the ticket. Because these Republicans have proven that they are morally inferior, they have no principles to stand on, and instead, they are just falling in line to this authoritarian takeover as their people get hurt. That is not acceptable for any elected representative. These people should be absolutely ashamed of themselves. And we should use this as ammunition to get these people out of office the next time their election comes up. These people should be nowhere near power. If you're not going to stand up for the people you represent in your state, then get out. If you're not willing to stand up against this authoritarian takeover, then get lost. You guys are complicit in all of this damage that this Trump administration is doing. You are sitting idly by while they tear down the government from the inside out. These people need to be voted out. We need to coalesce around these people who have understood that they made a mistake, who understand that they need to fight back against this Trump administration. We need to come together and fight back against this Trump administration. And in each and every election, we should vote Democrats in, because these Republicans should be nowhere near any authority if they're not even going to stand up for their own constituents. So I will leave it there. If you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share it with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. We've got to build something here on the left that can adequately push back against this right-wing media ecosystem that just shovels all of this shit day in and day out for this Trump administration without any pushback whatsoever. So if you do appreciate my work, please do remember to subscribe. If you want to see how this MAGA movement is marching itself directly into fascism, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. They are now silencing dissent with violence. So do watch that video on the screen now. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.